Jojo called. He says it's minus 38. He's out without power, and he is scrambling to find heaters to keep his building from freezing. Yeah. Thanks, guys, for joining. Looking forward to continuing that conversation that came out of multiple podcasts from 2025. Norm, I'll give you the tagline, and you can either sign below it or steal it or give it away. But know your numbers was one of the most common things that came out of our podcast last year, and even the last podcast we did, know your numbers or just stay mad about it, is starting to shift the conversation from, hey, we obviously covered a lot of content on why we believe, and in ways I think are correct, saying this industry is in trouble. But I don't want to hang out there. I don't think you guys want to hang out there. I don't actually think it's possible you guys want to hang out there by proof of what you've done in your own businesses, but we don't want to just sit there and grovel about it. We're going to talk about some hard things. But now let's talk about what can we do about it. So this podcast is going to start with the conversation on contracts. And we got Mark fashionably walking in on, there he is. Hey, got some cool guests again from our normal podcast. So who we do have is Mark Livingston. He is our newest teammate here at KaizenHub. And we've got the infamous Mike Nickel from Simplicity Airdrie. So,
hello,
Mike. Hello, Mark. And would not be right to do a podcast on Know Your Numbers without yours truly, Norm.
Pleasure to be here, gents, as always.
Great to have you three. I'm excited to be here. Again, my name's Lenny from KaizenHub. Who we don't have in our normal podcast group is Todd from Prestige Collision and Jojo out of Cold Lake Bonnyville with JD Collision, CSN JD Collision. So I'm going to start it off just by again asking both Mark and Mike, as we head into this, obviously this sparked from a conversation that we had you two pair up and talk about. But Mike, if you wouldn't mind first giving a quick intro, who you are, where you're from, why you're in this business, and what got you on this call today.
Well, my name's Mike Nickel. I'm living and working in Airdrie, Alberta. Own a Simplicity Car Care there, auto body shop in Airdrie here, and yeah, I'm on here because I just recently went through some contracts negotiations, and Mark helped me out with that, and also because you invited me. So, and sweet. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah,
awesome.
When Lenny calls, awesome. You pick up the phone, right?
Yeah, you don't even have a chance.
That's awesome. Hey, Mike, do you want to either just lean a little forward or up the volume on your voice? Just want to make.
I'll try my best. Yeah.
That's
sorry, I'm
perfect.
not. No, it's my first time, so be gentle.
I got you.
I say that a lot.
Awesome. Thanks. And Mark, again, you were a guest on our last podcast, which was awesome. Just gave, I think, people a chance to hear what you're up to. For those who know you and who don't know you, what it is you're so excited to be in part of. But even on the topic of contracts, maybe if you could just give our listeners a bit of a background on the knowledge you bring when it comes to contracts, even know your numbers from your previous role, and of course what you're excited to continue to get into with us here at KaizenHub.
Well, thanks, Lenny, and good morning, gentlemen. Nice to see you all again.
You bet.
Yeah, I guess, from a business owner's perspective, the rotating contractual opportunities with various vendors, paint companies, distribution companies, etc., I mean, can cause a fair amount of distress in your business. And, trying to wade through all of the details can be time consuming and, um, a little bit daunting if, you're looking at 3 or 4 or 5 proposals at the same time. Typically, there's oftentimes a condensed period of time because one contract may be elapsing, or you may be exiting, or maybe you're not even in one. But I think probably the best thing to do is cool your jets a little bit, just slow down, breathe deeply, take them one at a time, try and get a good understanding of what each of them involve, because the various aspects of the proposal, the various content components, after 5 or 7 or 9 or 10 years can become very caustic to you as an owner, or it can be a 10-year honeymoon. So, you really need to be careful about what you're signing, and whether or not you have an opportunity to exit that contract without penalty.
Okay, awesome. And we can spend a little bit of time here while we got you getting primed up there, Mark. What, if it could be simply put, what is the importance of having a contract, or the benefits maybe, and or going without one these days? And then not so much what do you think people should do when it comes to all the finer details. I mean, if it sparks another podcast on how to actually define one, I think we'll get into some of that today. But who's out there that you can lean on when you're coming due for a contract or need to make that decision? So pros, cons, and what resources out there are there?
I mean, you oftentimes your contract will be presented by the distribution company initially, but oftentimes the final negotiations may be with a combination of your distribution company and the paint vendor manufacturer. So that the ability to analyze individual contracts by yourself, certainly, everybody's capable of doing that. Whether or not you have the mental capacity, given the day-to-day challenges that you face in operating your business, oftentimes the paint contract review is something I'm doing on the weekend. It's something I'm doing at night after I'm out of the business. So you could certainly lean on, Lenny and the team at KaizenHub for assistance in analyzing it, and just sort of wading through the details. I mean, there's lots of moving parts inside of the contract, and the discount structure is one component that we'll probably talk about that later in the contract. But I mean, it can be a little bit confusing, because you're going to get to this net discount that is something off of a proposed retail cost. Now, where that retail cost comes from is another thing, right? I mean, so, we need to be extremely conscientious about, is it just an arbitrary retail cost that I pulled out of the sky? There are no published price lists in Canada per se today by the paint manufacturer. So, I mean, the retail component is often an industry accepted normal cost for a product through distribution. And then your discounts will be applied off of that proposed retail cost. So again, all 4 or 5 major manufacturers in Canada today are operating off of the same assumption of a proposed retail cost. And I think when we did the analysis for Mike, we, looking at that across a 5-year term, at the end of the day, the paint company is going to propose a minimum purchase requirement for you to be involved in a contract with them and their distribution partner. So that minimum purchase requirement at the very base is what you should do in the very best performance over the term of the contract. And it will come into some sort of a cost monthly, annually, hourly, however you want to break that down. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to choose the one that's best for you based on one of those situations, be it a prebate, be it a rebate, be it a extra discount off of invoice versus any sort of financial compensation. I mean, those are all, questions that you'll need to answer, and I'm sure we'll discuss those as we move through.
And let's do that. We'll get into it on the contracts piece because I think it again is part of know your numbers and things you can do. But we'll let it go where it needs to. I love the off script. Just for listeners, and I don't want to assume that isn't just shop owners. It could be anyone. What are we talking about when it comes to contract? And let's keep it to the actual collision industry. What things come under contract, just so people listening might understand? Is that just paint materials, or is there other things that you guys?
Who actually reads contracts anyways? I know I might skim through, but we have a lot of contracts in our lives, right? Like, have you ever looked at your cell phone contract from your provider? I think that thing's like 25 pages, but we all just sign it, right? I mean, at least I do. But as far as the paint ones go, there's different levels. Like, we just came out of a previous contract was a prebate contract, which is a totally different story than what we're on now. But that's something that, 5 years ago, that's something that I needed coming out of COVID, right? Something that I had to do. But now that we're in a position where I don't need a prebate, it's an entirely different world. So that's probably one of the first things you want to figure out. What do you actually need? What is your end goal after 5 years? Like, what are you looking for most out of it? And you have that could include sundries in there. And then you have obviously your DRP contracts, and, you have your internet, phones, everything.
Good point. Yeah. And I think when we get to it in a moment here with you, Mike and Mark, when he came in to help you, was about your paint contract, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And I mean, aside from mentioning names, fine. I'm not really concerned about that because there were a couple of big players in the room on paper when it came to the contracts you were being offered. But I'd actually like to stay, like you said there, because what a great thing to add to the know your numbers piece is there are all kinds of contracts that could affect your business on the decisions you have to make, and or maybe forces you to indecision because it's just so overwhelming. So we'll keep that open. We'll start with it and just get you to share in a moment what that journey was like coming out of the 5-year or the COVID contract to where it opened up, and then kind of take us through that journey, and I'll let you and Mark kind of just share what that was like, because it was super cool for us to be able to be part of. For what I can remember, the first time having multiple contracts laid out and having somebody who understands that language walk through them, that was cool. So before I do that, though, Norm, do you have any contracts in your business, or is Manitoba just kind of like every day is a new day?
Well, no, we definitely have contracts. I mean, having one insurer in the province that, we sign a contract with them, with a gun pointed to our heads. But anyways, nonetheless, no, I'm joking, but it is different, right? That whole aspect with DRPs and that I wouldn't speak to that. That's something that I'd love to know more about. But it's always the same, right? Being in a public insured market, we look over and say, wow, look at all these great things you're able to do in that market. And I'm sure there's things in your market that you're like, wow, I'd love to have the stability that you get to enjoy with your contract. So there's always going to be bits and pieces from both contracts. And then the paint contracts are kind of, I'd say, probably across the board, right? I mean, different areas probably have different markets, probably have different pieces to it. But I think Mike made a great point that I think before you sign a contract, you need to know what you are getting out of it, right? You sign a contract for your phone. Well, you're going to get this type of service, you're going to get these types of features, and off you go. I know a lot of people that are operating without paint contracts, right? They understand their numbers. They don't need any capital up front, or they don't need anything that would be an offshoot of signing a contract. So they enjoy the flexibility of holding their provider accountable at all times because they could leave at any time. Is that a great relationship? I mean, you be the judge, right? Everybody's situation is so different, and but as I always say, it comes back to those numbers because Mark made a great point. What are we basing the discounts off of? Where are those numbers coming from? At the end of the day, you could be, shop A could be getting a massive discount on an inflated number, and shop B is getting a much smaller discount, but based on a much smaller number to begin with. So if you know what your margins look like in the first place, that's the only way you're going to be able to measure what things look like from provider A to provider B, right? The constant is the contract that you have, what you're receiving from your customer, from your insurance company in terms of paint material. The variable is what they will sell you the paint for. And are you willing to give up some of that margin for a capital investment up front? So there's a lot of moving pieces here. So I got notepad out here. I'm listening just as much as anybody else is.
Great. So let's and thanks, Norm. Again, I would love to continue hearing from you as well, though, the experience you've had after both Mike and Mark talk. But I think that's what our goal out of this podcast is just to continue to shed light on things you can do or things you maybe have done and wish you didn't. You learn from it. I mean, hindsight's a beautiful thing. But what can we do to continue to help people understand what's out there for help, resources, just awarenesses? So, because yes, well put, Mike, that almost everything nowadays has some degree of a contract to it, and rightfully so. It should protect, both parties. You would hope that's the purpose behind it, and that there's no conniving or, scandalous attempt behind it. But
Yeah.
we'll stick with that. In most cases, contracts are a positive thing or should be a positive thing. So, Mike, you reached out. It was through our Kaizen Elevation group. I think we were actually in a meeting up north in JoJo's territory, and you had brought up something about my biggest challenge at that time last year was I'm up for renewal for contract, and I've got all kinds of contracts coming at me. I don't really know what to do. It seems like a lot. Can you guys help? So we reached out to Mark. This was actually just before Mark came on board with us and just said, would you just give Mike some of your time? So what was that like? Take us through the journey. I'll let you two run through it.
Yeah, I'll start off. So yeah, it was my previous contract was a prepaid contract with a MPO, or minimum purchase order, which was supposed to be over 5 years. We crushed that off in 3.5 years. So we were up early, and everybody knew about it. So there was 4 different vendors that were, I don't want, how do you say it, courting me. Like I was the new
I
kid that
think
was,
we described it as you were the hot girl in grade 8.
yeah, like, okay, back off. I'm married. But yeah, it was a lot coming at me at once, and just reaching out to Mark and be like, Mark, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, kind of in a panic. Like, I know what I want, which is the main thing to me is profit on materials. I want to go with the company that's going to make me the most money, because I mean that's why I work. That's why I own a business, right? So uh, he was like, okay, calm down. Let me see what we're doing here. He's going to break it all down over a 5 year, you know, purchase minimum purchase requirement, but it's not really a requirement because this new contract, it is a service based agreement. There's no, like Norm said, I could walk away at any time, and it's weird to think that they're throwing these numbers out at you even though you could leave tomorrow. That that's the one thing I found that kind of blew my mind this time. But yeah, Mark was great. He got all the numbers that I gave him. He broke it down to, the retail cost, the initial discount cost, then the rebates, if there's any signing bonuses, projected sales, cost as a percentage of sales, like a lot of numbers he threw at me, and it was all there in one breakdown. that you're able to just look at, like, okay, this is important, the numbers are important, but now what are the other things they're offering? Service is also something you want to look at too, right? Because it is a service-based contract. Who has the support? Is that kind of how it went, Mark? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was pretty exciting. The background that I had previously, I participated in a number of contract proposals over the years. But because all of those contracts are proprietary to the owner of the business, um, I never got to see any other offers. So as a paint company, you kind of walk in blind. You don't really know what the competition is offering. And
This
it's a
is so
little bit unnerving because you're kind of, sort of bearing yourself in front of the crowd and not really aware of what exactly is happening. The owner has potentially all of the cards against his chest, the collision shop owner. Um, and you have, the opportunity to play one of those 4 or 5 cards. So it was a really neat experience in that I got to, with Mike's authorization, got to take a peek at all of the contracts, all of the percentages, and the financial offerings, the service offerings, and at the end of the day, if you're going to go into a contract, like Mike said earlier, and Norm supported, is what do I expect over the 5 years? And if I'm going to align myself with a partner, I'm going to try and find the one that is going to support me as my business evolves through the parameters of the paint contract. Really, that's what that minimum purchase order, minimum purchase requirement is that over 5 years, we would expect, as the paint company, would expect that your business will grow. And because of that growth, you'll retain them at the end of the contract. You'll renew that contract because the paint company helped you grow your business through product support, other things like that. So, I mean, that always is, the paint companies and the distribution companies' modus operandi is to support you through the growth over the 5 or 7 years or whatever the term is. And like Lenny said, the contract needs to be mutually beneficial. So in my contract, if I go that route, what are the visitation schedules? What are the support schedules for technical support, business development support? Do I need that? Can you help me with marketing? Like, there's a ton of things that can be done with your paint company. And years ago, a General Motors dealership principal said to me when I was in my other role, I wished I got as much support from my General Motors business development team as I do from my paint company's business development team. And I mean, paint is 5 to 7% of your cost of doing business. Parts is 40%, 45% of your cost. And all you get is delivery and discount off of parts, right? So, I mean, the paint contract becomes a very emotional component of the business. It's really, there's history, there's love of the paint, there's the technical piece of it that your painter loves. You may love as an owner because of your own personal experiences. So there's a lot of emotion at play when it comes to the final product that's going onto your customer's car and what that looks like and how you are able to sell that to the end purchaser, your customer, be that an insurance company or a consumer.
You're right. You kind of get lost in it as just part of the way business works. Because I don't know that there are other industries that sign something so small yet significant like a paint contract. I mean, clearly based on volume, but as I recall, and I learned a lot back in the days when I worked concourse for Ken, is that there's other things that can come along with it. And I was going to use the word perks. That's one of them. There's other perks too, signing a contract, in this case with a paint company. or a supplier. There's other things or benefits that can come with it, resources. I won't spend a whole lot of time on the offerings for, business development and operation improvements. I think in our whole span of when we had contracts, we benefited greatly from resources that were being offered. I'm also and have learned that sometimes the things you're being offered that feel good, like a promise to help you better your business or make you more operationally sound, isn't necessarily going to happen. I think the main reason is just sheer resources. I think the intention as well, and that there's a lot of great knowledge, but it's just sheer resource. So um, we could get into that, but more importantly, to start, I think, what are the other offerings that can come aside from a savings on discount with money? What other perks come with those types of things, and what attracts people to a contract other than just that small percentage?
Yeah, there's quite a few things. So it's really what's important to you and where you're at in your point in life, like where you at on your journey, your business journey, right? Because these contracts, they reward volume. They don't reward efficiency, right? So they
Mm-hmm.
don't reward you for using less paint. They want you to, obviously buy more. But there's things that were thrown out there like, vacations. There's vacation funds that a few of them have where every 2 years you get a free trip to somewhere really cool, which I mean, it did cross my mind. Other things are like, season tickets at NHL arenas are always a factor. Equipment, free equipment,
Mm-hmm.
training, you know, all those things are part of different companies, and they try to throw out that wow factor. So it really depends what's important to you at that current point in time.
Sure. No,
Yeah,
and I'll jump in. That's a good point, Mike. Is it's not just perks or like the fun benefits, which I mean, you don't actually need a set of seasons tickets to an NHL game in order to operate your business.
yeah,
But hey, it's a cool little add-on. Might
Yeah.
might just steer me your way, right?
yeah,
But things like a paint booth, right? To actually have a company willing to invest with you and work out a contract to say over X amount of years we're going to invest in you and help you upgrade some equipment could be life or death,
yeah.
right? To get you up to code and to get a place that your people can enjoy working in. But
That's,
um,
yeah.
keep going. Whatever things are being put out there to hopefully help owners and benefit them by choosing to use a contract. Anything? Norm, any experience just with yourself, but in your side of the industry there in Manitoba? What are you seeing owners that you know of that entice them other than a volume discount?
No, I think it comes back to the need at the time, right? If you've got a shop that's growing, adding on, building a new facility, your needs are completely different than someone who just went through something like that, right? It depends
Mm-hmm.
on the mindset, right? A lot of shop owners don't want anything up front. They want that continuous discount across the board. But I think to that point, as you're heading into a negotiation like that, you need to understand where you are at that moment, right? So we talk about going in blind. Yes, the paint company is going in blind. They can't see the other offers. But as shop owners, we're also kind of going in blind, right? Because we don't know what that company gave to another shop. And I know that's always played in the back of my mind, right? And there's no shortage of stories out there too of, people sitting around reminiscing of like, oh yeah, my paint company gave me this, gave me that, what's fact, what's fiction. If you got
Mm-hmm.
to take that into consideration. And then there's perspective, because sometimes you walk away from a contract and from signing a contract and you're like, wow, that was a great contract, and then someone says, oh, I got this on my contract, and all of a sudden you think, oh, my contract's not that great anymore, right? So it's important not to get drawn into that, and have that North Star guiding you through this, which I would say is your numbers again, right? So if you're in a position in your business right now where you're thinking, you know what, maybe I should look for a contract because I want to expand, or I need more equipment, or I just want a better discount, I would say give yourself a little bit of runway and make sure you understand the current situation that you're in, because otherwise you will never have a reference point. And that's when you tend to get drawn into the perks that may not, that might seem appealing at the start, but once you get into it are not that appealing. So I think that's, as I'm hearing these guys talk, it's like, what's the reference point, right? If the paint company is going in blind, the shop owner is going in blind, there's all these moving pieces, but there needs to be a something that's constant, or something that you can rely on as a North Star. So that's what I'm kind of pulling out of this, because I think a lot of people just get excited, like, okay, I'm going to do this, so let's get at it. What can you give me? It's like, well, what do you already have? Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to add that to the isms of Norm. Know your numbers and what's your North Star. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So on that note, Mark, if you could share a lot of what you've shared with us and our clients so far, and that we see just as a great resource of having you on a team, is not just how to review contracts. That's a great thing to have, but the ability to sit down and truly talk about some profitability points. And we've touched base in other podcasts on this. We've thrown out some ideas of what an owner should, or not even ideas, strong suggestions, what an owner needs to know. But in this context, starting with even just a contract, what would you say some of the potential North Star items should be, or in your experience, you've seen people use to help guide their decision?
Well,
I just jump in quick before Mark? I just like to say that Mark was my North Star when we were going through. Like, thank you again, Mark. Like, I was always looking up to Mark. Guide me, please. He did give me one suggestion that I did not do, and I kind of now, a month into it, wish that I would have. But hopefully you can talk on that, Mark. Was like, my contract ended, so in the 3 months that I took to decide on this new contract, I was losing money that I could have had discounted for those 3 months, right? So there is kind of like a push to get it done. But what Mark suggested, and I'll let you talk about it, Mark, was a great idea, and I think, and the paint companies were willing to do that, but it would have extended the talk for me another 3 months, which I don't know. I felt the pressure not to do that, but please, Mark, elaborate on that. And yes, thank you again.
Yeah, no problem. Well, I mean, if particularly in the situation where you're strongly considering changing paint lines, I mean, let's say there's 4 of them that are players in Canada today, and there are others. There are, some, big players in Europe that have some, lines here as well, that in some areas, Eastern Canada are a little more influential than out West. But I mean, you need to know what that product is going to perform like in your facility. I mean, you've had a particular line in your shop for 5, 7 years, whatever that is, and your paint team has dialed into that product and your operating conditions, your booth, your prep stations, your technician skill sets. They all of the paint companies require similar but not the same operating environments. One might say finish sand with 600 grit, another says 400. I mean, all of those things play into how your technicians are going to be able to be adapting into the new system, because there is a learning curve. And I mean, the cost of change has a detrimental impact on your profitability. It doesn't matter what you do. If you were using a Celette bench and now I'm going to put in a car aligner, your technicians are all going like this, like, now what, right? So that learning curve, and sort of where you alluded to, Mike, that anticipatory piece of the learning curve, how do I minimize or mitigate some of the financial cost? And that's by doing line trials, product demos, whatever the paint company is going to call it. even the company that you currently are using, have them come in and do a 2-week line trial and have them pay for all of the products that they use during that line trial. That's a tough negotiation tactic. I mean, you're kind of putting on your Trump philosophy of negotiation. Now it's my way or the highway, but at the end of the day, if they want your business, they need to prove to you how their product is going to improve your business, because ultimately that's what you as the business owner are looking for. Profitability improvement, productivity improvement, a little less grind for my technicians. Maybe it's an easier product to work with. I mean, those are some of the day-to-day things that, sometimes have more impact on your psychological and emotional well-being than any financial consideration has. I mean, if your painter is constantly griping about product performance or how good it is, I mean, those are two different ends of the scale. And somewhere in the middle lies, every product has great features, benefits, and values, and they all have some drawback. And what the line trial will expose in your particular facility are the cons, the drawbacks. What doesn't work about this product in my booth, in my prep station? The operating conditions in Manitoba with year-round humidity, completely different than the operating conditions in Airdrie, where humidity is a blessing if they have it, right? I mean,
My sinuses can attest to that.
Drive me back to the days before water-based primer as well. Like, man, and then we played with roll-on primer and all the stuff. Mark, what I love what you said is the the line trial. Even for me, years later, out of being out of the actual shop, kind of made me like, oh, that sounds a little like hard, costly. How am I going to find time to make room for a separate someone to come in and basically demo what they do? But I think you alluded to that there's an investment in that, both in getting them to participate in the costs. But I also want to point out, I love the idea that putting that type of thing in front of your people, which again, the Kaizen approach is, it may not be super comfortable to consider changing, even things like a paint line or what type of filler we use, but change is inevitable and it's not comfortable. In fact, if you're doing it right, it won't be comfortable. But it shouldn't be hard. And what a great opportunity in what you referenced is that allowing your people to also experience that and giving them a chance to, question it, test it, get a feel for it, with some boundaries in place. Like, we're going to make a decision on what we're going to do, and that does still fall obviously on the owner, but giving your people a safe place to actually do that, that's where you create buy-in. That's where you create the energy and the so-called excitement, because it should be always something that indeed benefits your business. So I obviously would love to know, maybe down the road, and some more feedback from our listeners if they want to hear more about what that type of structure looks like. So I do want to just give Norm a chance to comment to it.
I just had a question I was thinking about while you were saying that, Mark, is, as a shop owner, to Lenny's point, this is a big undertaking, right? If you're going to allow people to come into your business and show you different lines, and I could see someone getting caught in the weeds a little bit and thinking, okay, well, how do I qualify who comes in, right? So do we want to look at the offer, the financial offer first, and say, all right, these guys are in the ballpark. Now let's look what the product looks like. Or I could see someone looking at it the other way. Well, I don't want to look at I don't care about the financial offer if that product's not going to fit my shop, right? And I tend to jump to look at the financials first, because the paint piece is going to take a lot more time and resources away from my business, right? Because now the financial piece, I feel like the owner will look at that. Maybe he'll rely on a team of people, but while he's doing that, his team is pumping out work, right? As opposed to when you bring in a paint line, it's going to disrupt the flow a little bit. So what have you seen in terms of approach? Like how do shop owners approach it, and how have they been successful in doing that?
Well, and you hit both of the nails directly on the head, Norm. I mean, approaching it financially first, and which of these offers may offer the best financial perspective. And then now I've narrowed it down maybe from 4 or 5, suitors of the pretty girl in grade 8. Maybe I've nailed it down to 2 or 3 plus my existing one, right? I mean, so the other part of it is, how many units per day are you currently producing through your booth? That's a question that, that's the driver of my financial performance is, am I putting 3 or 4 or 5 units per day per booth? Is that my number? Okay, great. Now I know that when you come in here, I cannot have less than 3 or 4 or 5 cars a day go through my booth. I mean, hold their feet to the fire. I mean, I was on that side. Our feet were held to the fire in those situations. I mean, and if we didn't get it done, there was some extra time being put in at the end of the day to make sure that it got done.
Right.
I mean, because it's a learning environment, and all of the trainers and all of the paint companies will approach it from, this is a product demonstration. We're teaching you how to use our product, but financially, you as the business, I can't have less cars per day going through my shop. I have customers scheduled. They're all committed to delivery dates, arrival dates. I mean, you can't call all your customers and say, oh, we're trying out a new paint line, so right. I don't want you coming in, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, I think there's kind of an assumption. Sorry, I was just going to say, I think there's also probably a general understanding that if you're looking at your top 2, top 3, top 4 paint manufacturers, I think there's enough out there that people are going to make an assumption. Okay, it's probably really good to consider, right? They've met that threshold, and then it's going to come down to the details, right? How is that product, to your point, going to react in my environment, high humidity, right? Because I feel like, and I can't say this for sure because I've had one paint line my entire career, but I can assume that some will perform better in certain aspects of that process of the repair or paint process, and others will perform better in other parts. So it's a matter of matching that up to your process. Where is it going to be more beneficial, right? So I think some of them just automatically get qualified because half the shops in the province are using them. It's like, okay, it must be a decent product, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think you want to look at it from both sides, like from doing the trials. I think because doing the numbers, you can get projected cost per hour of liquid paint, right?
Right.
But what you do want to do it live and to actually track the cost per actual repair. There's a difference there, I think, and I think that you need to know both.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
Exactly.
I'm going to bring it back to the North Star question, and not to get too far off track from that, because I think it's going to lead to just a lot of great things that anyone with any contract in front of them can use from your advice there, Norm, and asking Mark and Mike for yours too. But Mark, you had alluded to off Norm's question that spending time with you, showing that we can provide these results. Going back to the days I was in the shop, and we had to really pay close attention to, as neat as it would be to put in the world's next fastest clear. It's going to shave off 2 minutes per cycle or give you one more car per hour or something. And knowing our entire lean journey, that we could have the fastest booth with the coolest clear and the best painter, but if the rest of the system can't keep up, like our prep team, like the reassembly team, like even the body technicians, what good is this going to do me? And that leads me to what I said earlier about the promises, like, oh, but we're going to come in operational and give you some great processes, and we teach lean and all of that. We learn so much by using those resources. There is a place for that, and look for it when you're making a deal with somebody on a contract, not just to get you some instant result in one part of your business. Take a look at the whole. Is this going to benefit the whole system and or affect it? But be very cautious of being told one thing, ask about capacity, because what we see happening is that there are all kinds of contracts out there to bring us on as a supplier or a network, and we're going to get you more work, because that can be the scariest thing, at least I recall, in a shop is running out of work. Because that's like, there isn't even a single process that works if you don't have any work. um, so suddenly, okay, well, I need work. I'm gonna bring you on, and you're gonna bring me all this work, and life's gonna be good. But what's happening is now the industry demand changes, and now everyone's so busy. Yet we're still paying all kinds of money to be part of this program, part of this thing. What happens then? Right? What am I actually paying for is what a lot of people are sharing, and rightfully so, asking. And so in a cool way, it's forcing people, not in just contracts, but offering them to redefine what's the most important thing, which is value to the customer. So with that, we all have to be providing business that's based on value to the customer. That's taken right from Toyota principles. It's what make them number one. And when they're not number one, they find a way to get back to it. They're always improving based on value to the customer, not some other, way around getting some sort of profit. That's how you make profit. Now, North Star, the question earlier, if you could start us off, Mark, whether you know or could shed some light on what those should be, or what you've seen people in your experience use to guide them. And of course, Mike, Norm, I'd love to know what you would say right now or in the past year North Star was or is. Other than, Mike, you shared that Mark was at one point. So, but yes, Mark, start us off.
Heart litter. Yeah, I guess, when you look at business and, say from, shovel in the ground startup to, mature 35 years family business, passing it on to my children, that growth cycle has many different ebbs and flows. And some of those ebbs and flows, of course, are based on, economies of cities, provinces, countries, whatever. But a lot of them are based on owners' knowledge gain, experiences, getting better with the numbers, as Norm says, knowing my numbers better. So as we think about, a smaller business just opening up, doing X amount of sales a year, one of the most important guiding principles is refinish cost, liquid cost per refinish hour. That one for a smaller facility really is a sign of the health of the business, and getting that to a manageable point. Not that it's not important, in a, let's say a 12 or $15 million a year business, it's extremely important as well. But as the business evolves into those varying sales levels, liquid cost as a percentage of sales becomes a more consistent, palatable KPI. Now my cost as a percentage of sales is X, whereas previously it was Y. And the two are going to be, considerably different, maybe as much as 50%. Because if I'm doing, let's say 2.5 million a year, and now I'm doing 7.5 million a year, my cost as a percentage of sales is going to be considerably different than it is, at 7.5 versus 2.5. It's just the game of math, unless I'm just throwing product down the drain, which, at 7.5 million a year, hopefully you're not. So those are the two that sort of like are always, for me, immediate health of the business. What are those two KPIs? Given the sales that your business is in, sales categories, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 7.5, whatever those are. And where do you fall in range with those two KPIs compared to peers in your competitive zone? Because of course it varies. You're in Manitoba, you have, a labor rate of X, you have a materials rate of Y. You're in Alberta, you have a labor rate of Z, and you have a materials rate of P. I mean, and they're not
like a labor rate A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's more
right.
what it's like.
And and you look at the provincial providers, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, seem to be a little more affable when it comes to material allowances than the private provinces. There's some understanding in the public provinces that materials are a considerable cost of doing business. Therefore, our compensation mechanism is a little bit different than the private provinces. Hopefully more equitable if you're managing your costs.
True. Should I go?
Would love you to.
Would you love it? Okay. So for me, other than Mark, who's obviously great, North Star, I appreciate you so much. Coming down to the final decision there was three major factors for me. And one which was surprising that didn't really pop into my head until like the final moments. But one was obviously the numbers, so profit, the liquid cost per hour that we just talked about. That was the most important for me going forward. Second was service. What else are you going to provide? Can I count on you, right? And then the third part of it was loyalty, which I chose a paint line that is provided by different vendors, but the vendor that I chose was because of loyalty. Like they were there for me when I needed them, and to me, that's important to factor that in. Like, it's I'm just that kind of person. Like I appreciate that, and I want to continue that relationship, right? So that was the third factor for me.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, North Star, that I look at is obviously booth cycles. We know going into changing paint lines, which is what we did, that we were going to lose some production, and we lost probably half a cycle in the first month per day. So that's huge. That's something going forward you may want to bring up before, like, where are you going to find the value in that I'm going to do production for until, like Mark said, till we know this product, we know how it performs in our system, which could be another bonus of doing the trial runs, is you can get a jump start on that. But now that we're good, we're backed up to where we were, I think there's an opportunity with this company to be greater, which is what now I'm looking forward to this year.
Well, and that's one of the ongoing benefits of being, in a contract of some sorts is what, now that we understand the system, let's bring your technical professionals back in and let's fine tune the system, right? I mean, and I'm sure that most paint companies and distribution companies are more than willing to, support you. You're weaned off the bottle now, but you might need to come back to the bottle when you're cranky. I mean, we've all had children, so we all know that taking the child off the bottle immediately isn't always successful. But being able to continually come back and refine, because the paint company and many distribution companies have their own training facilities, they have their own laboratories, they're experimenting with things constantly. This is new. So, here's the other part of it. If I'm going to replace something, let's say the high performance clear, like Lenny mentioned earlier, you need to take what's existing out, and you need to compensate me for the removal of that product. I have X amount of inventory left. Now you want me to replace that with this. Okay, but you need to take all of this back and credit me for that. And I don't ever want to see that here again. So now we're moving into that sort of controlled products list, these are the only things we need to repair or refinish cars in our facilities. We don't need 9 types of Scotch pads. We don't need 4 different plastic wraps, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you can look in inventory rooms in collision facilities and see, man, these guys have inventory here for a year. Sandpaper curling up. Maybe it's never even been opened. I mean, there's just some madness around some of the stuff that's like, wow, why are we doing? Oh, because, I got a bulk discount. Oops.
I'd like to ask that of all of you, and since we got a cool range of people on this podcast, I've seen it as well. Walked into a shop, seen a whole room full of materials. It's like, oh, what's up with that? Well, we get volume discounts, so we just buy a lot and store it, and then that saves us money. I don't. Does it?
No.
That's a tough one. It seems like when you're mapping it out on paper, it does, but I don't know that it does. I've not like just to come out and say it, I've never been a bulk purchase type of guy. I've never gone down that road. I buy what I need when I need it, and knowing my numbers, I know where that brings me, and I'm happy with that number. So I've
Yeah.
never found the need and the cost of the space, right? Even if I decided today that I was going to do that, where would I put this stuff and what else would I be doing with that space if that stuff wasn't there? I think that needs to be ironed out too, right? So I personally, I've never been a bulk discount type of guy, but I don't know, maybe there is some programs out there that would be enticing. What do you guys think?
I mean, yeah, I still remember back in the day we'd buy boxes and boxes of paper towel because it was a good deal. And then when we switched into the lean environment, and that included going to a Kanban material system, uh, to the days where I finished my career at Concourse, we would carry 6 rolls on the replenishment wall because we had 6 workstations that needed a roll. And
Right.
when one roll got pulled, or maybe to a min max of 3 rolls got pulled, the very next day we had 3 rolls show up. Which makes you really think on storing those 12 boxes upstairs somewhere, hopefully that you're keeping track of, let's be honest,
Right.
somehow. And then hopefully have some sort of system in place to reorder it so when you run out of those 12 boxes, you're not panicking and buying another 12 boxes. How much is the actual cost of spending even just a little more per roll, but having it exactly when you need it on a space this big inside your shop wall, as you alluded to, Norm, right?
Yeah.
Versus an entire room. So I will still say that I go to Costco twice a month, drop probably, I don't know, 500 or 600 minimum in bulk food to feed my beautiful family, and I'm blessed to be able to do so. And it does take some space up in our, storage facility at the Howling residence. But still doesn't mean that I would be against finding things that you do need or could indeed help manage your costs on. But I still think it's a very slippery slope, and I don't know the answer to it, why somebody would fill an entire room full of something like materials, paint or sandpaper or whatever, based on a bulk purchase and actually think that that's going to save them money.
Well, and then you're
Well, in
responsible for
some
that.
facilities. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just
Sorry
going to
about
say
that.
you're responsible for that, right? So if something happens, whether some of it spoils or whether, something happens in your facility or it freezes or, you're on the hook for all that, right? So, that's, whatever discount you may have accumulated can be erased very quickly. So sorry, Mark, I cut you off there. Go ahead.
No, perfect. Sorry about that. There are some situations where inventory, consignment inventory is a legitimate component for your business, remoteness being one of those, right? I
Right.
mean, if you're mid Vancouver Island, you're, 4 hours from Victoria, the nearest distribution outlet. I mean, so, your distribution company may build you a consignment room, a consignment cabinet, something like that, where these high moving products are in there. And the next time their salesperson is in or their online ordering system detects that you've used the last of the min max component, it's up there on a bus or whatever the next day. Those are some valuable considerations for inventory, but a couple of other industries' perspectives on inventory. The manufacturer's perspective is inventory is something nobody else wants. You think about a dealership's lot, and he's got 250 F-150s on there, and right now where I live, I can get up to $30,000 off of one of those because not one of them has moved since last year. They're all 2025 models. Okay. So what's the cost of carrying to him? Yeah, I got those up front through my agreement with Ford.
Right.
I needed to in order to get my next year's quota, I need to dump all of these. And probably it's going to be a barely break-even project. And the other one that comes from the fuel industry, the retailer, is shrinkage, dockage, and tookage. Right? I mean, fuel evaporates. The hotter it is, the quicker it's going away. The guy comes in and dips it, and was he factual in his dip?
Yeah.
And then, of course, theft, the other part of it, right?
I like what you shared there on the consignment, let's say, approach. We won't get into that, but the idea that that is actually based on interest to the client, the customer, because of something like distance. So 100%. That would be a conversation, something to consider when it comes to if you are going to carry inventory, because inventory in true sense is just a buffer and sometimes is required in order to replenish, because that's what happens. Life gets in the way. Somebody forgets to order something, or your system doesn't automatically do that for you. But that would be something, again, in your agreement to say, no, this is going to benefit my business. Let's make sure that it's well defined. So it's good. It's good. Awesome. I would just maybe draw on Norm and wonder what we think our friends over at JD Collision or Prestige would say. Like what do you think Todd would say to this type of podcast? And is it, do you think, and Jojo, right? What isms can we bring to this from many of the original podcast members? Are we hitting it? Are we getting this topic out there? Are we truly doing something to make sure that people can get some information to answer that question? How to know your numbers, and again, taking that North Star piece. Or is there anything else you think we need to touch base on?
No, I think I think they'd be proud of us. I think they'd be a little bit envious that they weren't a part of this conversation. So I kind of feel bad for them missing out. But all jokes aside, I think we laid out a lot of things, and I hope that maybe we, shed some light or brought perspective to someone maybe in this situation, and gave them something else to consider while they're looking at this, because it's not linear, right? It's not do this, do that, and you're done. There's all these moving parts. So I think at one point it's our job, we've always said about this podcast, let's start the conversation. Let's get people talking. And I think we've accomplished that today in raising a number of different perspectives and a number of different things to consider should you be going down this avenue. So to answer your question, yeah, they're damn proud of us right now.
Love it. I felt it, but I wanted to make sure that's the feeling that was coming across.
Yeah.
So, Mike, anything else to share?
Yeah, just final thought on contracts. I know we've talked a lot about renewing contracts or new contracts, but something you might want to consider is existing contracts is to take another look at. I know that Norm mentioned you were with the same provider for 10 years. I've seen those turn into what I call Santa Claus contracts, where you only see the guy come once a year.
Yep.
It's like, hey, they can get pretty comfortable in your trust that they're your provider. So shaking that up a little bit too is something you might want to look at if you're in an existing contract.
I think it's a good exercise. I mean, not that everybody's got a whole pile of extra time, but I mean, it is an important part of your business. So, if nothing else, being able to hold your current supplier accountable, and just for peace of mind for yourself. I mean, everybody wants to understand how things are working and know that, what, I am looking after this part of my business. There's a due diligence piece. So I think you're right. I think even if you're not in that situation, run the exercise to a certain extent. Maybe not bringing everybody for a trial for no reason, but you get where I'm going with this. It's just take the time to look at these things.
Yeah. Well, and I'll throw in that, again, let's just go with the expectation, understanding that everyone wants to do, good business. We all do need to find ways to make it work. But it's okay to think outside of the normal box, like Mark said. Use some of those resources. I think of Walter, High Caliber Collision, who had a vendor day and brought in all the dealers he works with just to let his staff meet people and see their process and how far they've come in building a system that's actually benefiting the vendors as well. It was an eye opener for them, right? But it gave people a chance to connect and understand that, hey, we're not making this stuff up. We're doing a lot of work to get these cars right, but are you paying attention to that as a vendor? But maybe even as a customer. I don't know. So, but that's a great point, Mike. Appreciate it. And Mark, did you have anything else to share before
Well,
we wrap?
you bring up a great point. The vendor component. I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier, the paint being one of your lowest costs, a percentage of sales of your cost of goods sold. But I mean, why not have a vendor agreement with all of your parts providers, as an example, that, one of the clauses could be, we won't return parts unless they're damaged, incorrect, or don't fit.
Love it.
What does that do to your parts supplier? Wow. Because we see it every day. You walk into a shop and, well, I thought that car was delivered, but there's still new parts on the rack.
Yeah.
Now I'm chasing a credit. I'm trying to return something. Am I violating my vendor agreement with the insurer because it was on the invoice to replace and now it's sitting on the parts rack?
Yeah.
I mean, right? So, a vendor agreement with your parts suppliers and others might eliminate some of the, man, they send back so much. My appraiser's just sitting there and click, 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 just ordering everything he conceivably knows we might need and then sending back a bunch of stuff. And it happens every day. Not in every shop, but it happens every day.
I'll add in that we get to teach constantly that making something visual, it's what creates the conversation. And I mean, man, years ago we instilled a 100% parts delivery. Years ago. So I remember Ken going around and talking to dealers and maybe not getting run out the door, but caused some upsets. Like, we can't do that. We can't afford to hold on to all this. He's like, well, I can't either. Yeah, we had to back that with a proper repair planning process and on our 100% parts request, but we got there. Part of our agreement was below 2% parts return for the purpose of damaged or not, but we didn't order parts on tow-ins and then send back $8,000 on that write-off. So I definitely know that none of you guys do that, but there are people out there listening that still pull that string, right? So definitely a two-way street. I would like to add my question through to you. I think JoJo would just say, be better, right? Whoever you are, whoever's listening, just be better. But on that note, I want to say thanks for you guys for taking some time today. I hope that, and I believe we got there, I hope that this is a part of many to come podcasts that we can find ways to help guide people listening and say, cool, yeah, last year was awesome to share a lot of great content and explore different ways we can get owners talking. Hopefully this is yet another one that we can encourage people to reach out both through the comments on either YouTube, Spotify, and or just reaching out to any of us. I do know that Norm, you've always been open, and Todd and Mark would be too, and JoJo, Mike, if it's okay as well, that people know who you are, that they can reach out to you, and if they have questions. And then, by all means, myself would like to say that if anyone has questions about what Mike shared and what Mark brings now to our team, we're happy to chat and find ways to connect people and get conversations going. So appreciate it, gentlemen, for your time and your trust.
Awesome.
In this
Thank
podcast.
you very much, everybody.